PR Connections Radio presents.
Welcome to Vegas Hockey Hub here on PRConnectionsRadio.com, the voice of new media. I'm your host, Ian Rakelli. And on this edition of Vegas Hockey Hub, we are going to be breaking down the 2024-2025 Vegas Golden Knights roster. Going to be doing the preview for you, similar to what we did in the last season of Season 2 when we broke down the roster preview for the Vegas Golden Knights in 23-24. We are back at it again for 24-25. Now, how this roster preview is going to be done is that we're going to start with the four lines on the forward. So forward line 1, forward line 2, forward line 3, and forward line 4. And then we will move over to the defensive pairings. And we'll go with defensive pairing 1, defensive pairing 2, defensive pairing 3. And after the two goaltenders, we will then talk about who we see as the healthy scratches for the Vegas Golden Knights here with the roster preview. And this is going to be a really fun episode, breaking down everything that's going on with your Vegas Golden Knights. And I really sit here and look at it and go, this is going to be a team that has a lot of changes. There was a big influx of players leaving this offseason, players being added this offseason, and even a few young guys that are going to be kind of trying to make their way onto the roster. So this is going to be fun to talk about as we're breaking it down here on PRConnectionsRadio.com, the voice of new media, and on Vegas Hockey Hub with your host, Ian Rakelli. Very quickly, follow us on social media at Vegas Hockey Hub. Now, getting into the forward line, let's start out with forward line 1. And Ivan Barbashev, he will be on the left side for your Vegas Golden Knights. Really no surprise here considering what he has done the past couple of years, ever since he was acquired at the trade deadline. Understand that this is a situation where Ivan Barbashev, he signed that $5 million contract back in the 2023 offseason. He is in year 2 of that contract. And if he gels well with Jack Eichel and with Victor Olofsson, that would kind of provide value for him. We talked about on this show in the past that his first full season playing with the Vegas Golden Knights was disappointing at the beginning, and they started to really turn it around in the second half of the year. So let's see how Ivan Barbashev does, but he pretty much is a lock on the left side for forward line 1. At the center, you are going to have your face of the franchise, the guy who could score 40-plus goals this year depending on his health, and that would be Jack Eichel. Look, there's no understatement saying that you're going to have him shoot the puck more often than anybody else on this roster. He is going to be your main goal scorer, your go-to with the Vegas Golden Knights. And when you sit here and watch Jack Eichel, him being your number 1 center makes so much sense when you understand what his ability is, his talent as a center, him being a guy that can be a good sniper in the NHL. So overall, Jack Eichel, first center, that is going to be a good option there. And then on the right side, a guy who was signed for about $1 million to come over from the Buffalo Sabres is Victor Olofsson. Now, we understand that with Victor Olofsson, he was a teammate with Jack Eichel. He was a line mate with Jack Eichel. So him being brought over from Buffalo is to help out Jack Eichel. So Victor Olofsson, Jack Eichel teaming up once again on the forward on the forward line 1, and then Ivan Barbashev, he will then be on that line as well. So kind of similar to last year where it was Barbashev, Eichel, and Marchessault. You're essentially swapping out Jonathan Marchessault and bringing in a former line mate in Jack Eichel with Victor Olofsson. And as we are doing our 2024 Vegas Golden Knights roster preview here on Vegas Hockey Hub, moving over to the forward line 2. Now, there's going to be a disclaimer here because this might change by opening night. All right, there is one person on this forward line 2 that might not be here on opening night. But let's start with the 2 players that we know are going to be on the second line, as we're going to talk about the young and I mean upcoming Pavel Dorofeyev. This is someone who has impressed me over the last 2 years, someone who has really grown and progressed with the Vegas Golden Knights organization. It is someone who I actually look at and could be a young up-and-coming star with the Vegas Golden Knights, depending on how many goals and how many points he racks up in 2024, 2025. Watching training camp, he has actually been getting a lot better. I've seen the progression that he has had. So Pavel Dorofeyev on that second line, being a top 6 forward for your Vegas Golden Knights, it makes so much sense when you understand how much he has grown over the past 2 seasons. And this is someone who's going to be a vital part of the Vegas Golden Knights moving forward. So on forward line 2 will be Pavel Dorofeyev. And then on the right side will be your captain in Mark Stone. Mark Stone, understand the injury concern. That's going to be a main vocal point for 2024, 2025. Can Mark Stone play a full season? Can he be on the ice for the entire year? But what we do know about Mark Stone is that he can put the puck in the back of the net. He is good at getting his assists. And more importantly, him being a leader in the locker room, he is vital for the Vegas Golden Knights when it comes to everybody else in the organization doing better and being a collective unit when Mark Stone is on the ice. So Dorofeyev on the left side, Stone on the right side. But at center, here's the disclaimer. To start out the year, William Karlsson, one of the only misfits that are left on the Vegas Golden Knights, he is your projected second-line center for the Vegas Golden Knights. However, William Karlsson has been out for most of training camp. William Karlsson really hasn't played in preseason at all with the Vegas Golden Knights. So here is my disclaimer about the second line. If William Karlsson cannot go, if William Karlsson does not play on that second line for the Vegas Golden Knights, then here is what we are going to do. We are going to have somebody play on this team that will be on that center side. And I am going to be predicting that Brett Howden will step in for William Karlsson if Karlsson cannot go. If for some reason William Karlsson, who has missed most of training camp, who has missed most of preseason, he is not healthy and he is not able to skate around on opening night, then Brett Howden, Pavel Dorofeyev, and Mark Stone will be your second line on the forwards for the Vegas Golden Knights. So doing this 2024 Vegas Golden Knights roster preview here on Vegas Hockey Hub on PR Connections Radio, we're going to stay with the middle 6 forwards. We're going to move over to line 3. And this was a question mark. All right, this actually was a lot of possibilities for the third line. But I'm going to go with the logical choices here. And we are going to start out with Nick Waugh, who is going to be moved over from a center to a wing, and he will be on the left side for the forward line 3. It is someone in Nick Waugh who last year got the opportunity to be on the first line alongside Marchessault and alongside Barbashev when Jack Eichel got hurt around the All-Star break. Nick Waugh took advantage of that. He had an amazing January and a really good February, and he showed that he is more than a fourth-line center. And because of that, and based off of his performance in 2023, 2024, Nick Waugh being on the third line makes so much sense considering his talent at this point. Now, on the center will be Tomas Hertl. Now, Tomas Hertl, this is someone who the Vegas Golden Knights acquired from the San Jose Sharks at the trade deadline. And a lot of people are going to be questioning why he is not going to be in the top 6. Why is a guy like Tomas Hertl, who they traded a first-round pick and a guy like David Edstrom for, why will he be on the third line? And the main reason is that just based off of the talent that's on the top 6, this is the placement of where Tomas Hertl will be. This is just more based off of the talent the Vegas Golden Knights have, not just what based off of him. So Nick Waugh on the left side, Tomas Hertl on the center, and then on the right will be a guy like Alexander Holtz. And this is someone who, when it comes to Alexander Holtz, a former top 10 pick by the New Jersey Devils. The Vegas Golden Knights, they had him be acquired in the 2024 NHL draft. They gave up a mid-draft pick and Paul Cotter in order to get Alexander Holtz and Akira Schmid. So Alexander Holtz, this is a second chance, really. This is an opportunity for him to leave New Jersey and provide an opportunity to become a really good player with the Vegas Golden Knights. Consider this your boom or bust player for 2024-2025. If he booms, if he performs over expectations, then you have an excellent third line with Nick Waugh, Tomas Hertl, and Alexander Holtz. But if he is a bust and he does not provide the value they're hoping that he gets, then this will just be a situation where they move on and they might have somebody else be in that spot the next season. So on the third line, Waugh, Hertl, and Holtz. And just to recap very quickly, on the second line, Dorofeyev, Karlsson, and Stone, with the caveat that if Karlsson is not ready to go by opening night, then Brett Howden will have to step in the starting lineup. And then your first line, Ivan Barbashev, Jack Eichel, and Victor Olofsson. Your fourth and final line, this is going to be so impactful for the Vegas Golden Knights because they have 5 or 6 players really battling for 2 spots. You have Brett Howden battling for a spot, Tanner Pearson battling for a spot, Zach Aston Reese battling for a spot, Brendan Brisson, Jonas Roundbeer, Tanner Lesneski. There is a lot of players battling for the final 2 spots in the starting lineup. And for the forward line 4, we're going to kick this off with Tanner Pearson. Now, Tanner Pearson, throughout training camp, throughout the preseason, he has been performing exceptionally well for the Vegas Golden Knights organization. And with him being on a PTO, there were people wondering, would he earn a contract with the Vegas Golden Knights? Can a guy like Tanner Pearson, who was a former first-round pick by the LA Kings almost a decade ago, a guy who's been with Vancouver, Montreal, this is an organization in Vegas who took a flyer on Tanner Pearson, gave him a PTO, and him and Keegan Kolesar throughout training camp, Pearson and Kolesar throughout preseason, we have seen how well the chemistry has been with Pearson and Kolesar. And because of that, do not be surprised if Tanner Pearson does get signed to a standard contract. Based off of how well his preseason has been, I am putting Tanner Pearson as your left wing on the fourth line. And then at center, we're going to go with a 2-way contract and somebody who has impressed a lot of people in preseason. Tanner Lesneski came from the Philadelphia Flyers, was signed on a 2-way deal. You know, he'll be in the AHL, a lot of people thought. But over the 4 preseason games that we saw of him, he has been racking up goals. He has been getting good ice time. He has been making good plays on the offensive side, on the defensive side, you know, doing good jobs in the neutral zone. And because of his performance in the preseason, I have Tanner on the left side and Tanner on the center. So your fourth line will be Pearson, Lesneski, and then I have Keegan Kolesar once again as your right wing. He has been here for the last couple of years, kind of been your steady rock on the fourth line. Look, you know what Keegan Kolesar is. He is going to be a body that he'll get penalty minutes, but more importantly, this is somebody who can make physical contact. He is one of your players that you can use for hits. He can block shots if he needs to. This is a valuable asset to the Vegas Golden Knights, and that's why Keegan Kolesar will be on that fourth line alongside Pearson and alongside Lesneski. So your forward lines, once again, for Vegas Hockey Hub, your 2024 Vegas Golden Knights roster preview. Forward line 1, Barbashev, Eichel, Olofsson. Your forward line 2, Dorofeyev, Karlsson, and Stone, with the disclaimer that if Karlsson is out, Brett Howden will fill that spot. On forward line 3, Nick Waugh, Tomas Hertl, and Alexander Holtz. And then your fourth line could be Tanner Pearson, Tanner Lesneski, and Keegan Kolesar. Now, moving over to the defense for your Vegas Golden Knights. And if you've been watching the preseason at all, if you've been watching training camp at all, you will kind of know what the defensive pairings have been because they've kind of unveiled it. All right. If you've been paying attention, they've been kind of giving a hint away on who the defensive pairings are. Now, defensive pairing 1, Alex Pietrangelo, who is one of the highest paid players in the league, and Shea Theodore for your defensive pairing 1. Now, when it comes to Theodore and when it comes to Pietrangelo, there is a lot of positives with this move, but then there is 1 or 2 negatives that come along with it. Now, the positive is that Shea Theodore, he shoots the puck. He is a goal scorer. He can rack up good amount of points. If you're someone who wants an offensive-minded defenseman, someone who's going to create opportunities in the offensive zone, Shea Theodore is one of the best defensemen that you can go to in order to create opportunities in the back of the net. Alex Pietrangelo, a veteran, a 2-time Stanley Cup champion, someone who has played over 1,000 games in his career, and someone who is one of the best two-way guys over the last decade. So from a positive perspective, you have one of your best 2 defensemen in Pietrangelo and Theodore. Now, with Shea Theodore, we've talked about his lack of defense in the past and his mistakes in the neutral zone and on the back check. But with someone like Alex Pietrangelo, I think that can outweigh it. And more importantly, if you're focusing on just the offensive aspect of it, Pietrangelo and Theodore make so much sense. So for Alex Pietrangelo and Shea Theodore, that is your first defensive pairing for your Vegas Golden Knights, putting your 2 best guys out there on defense. You break up the Pietrangelo and Martinez deal because, well, Alec Martinez is in Chicago. And Shea Theodore and Brayden McNabb have been together for the last couple of years. We're breaking that up now. Your second defensive pairing. This happened because of what the last month of the NHL season was. So in the last month of the 2024 season, Alex Pietrangelo missed some time. And because Alex Pietrangelo was out for your Vegas Golden Knights, they put these 2 guys together. And I'm talking about defenseman Nick Hague and defenseman Noah Hanifin. And the chemistry that we saw in about the 15 games that Noah Hanifin and Nick Hague showed, they did exceptionally well. As a matter of fact, there was a lot of talk about bringing these 2 back together because of how well Hague and Hanifin performed alongside each together as a defensive pairing. And it makes no shocker that heading into 2024, 2025, Bruce Cassidy, George McPhee, Kelly McCrimmon, everyone in the Golden Knights organization saw what they did in the last month of 2024, and they have had Nick Hague and Noah Hanifin be your defensive pairing for your Vegas Golden Knights. And from a positive perspective, Nick Hague actually performed reasonably well when he was not on the third line for Nick Hague. As a matter of fact, when Alec Martinez got hurt, they actually were promoting Nick Hague up to the first line, and he did really well. In fact, it was one of the main positives from last season. The fact that Nick Hague actually was showing a lot of progression, not being on the third defensive pairing. And for Noah Hanifin, you acquire him from Calgary, you give up Daniil Miromanov, you give up some draft picks, and then you give him a nice contract extension with a few games left in the year to keep him long-term in Vegas. Noah Hanifin is in his prime right now. Noah Hanifin is arguably a top 20 defenseman in the NHL in terms of his potential. And when it comes to Nick Hague, he is someone who is durable. He's reliable. He is someone who's actually one of the only draft picks the Golden Knights have kept on to and has performed as advertised since being in the NHL. So for Nick Hague and Noah Hanifin, that will be your second defensive pairing for your Vegas Golden Knights organization. Now, the third defensive pairing, this is going to be tough because you have about 5 defensemen that are reasonably trying to go for this spot. So you have your veteran and Brayden McNabb, somebody who has been a misfit, a day one guy with your Vegas Golden Knights. You have Caden Korzak, who's somebody who a lot of people think could be a bright future with the Vegas Golden Knights organization, someone who was drafted back a couple of years ago, second-round pick. You also have Zach Whitecloud, someone who unfortunately regressed in 2023, 2024, but people are thinking maybe he can actually outperform himself in 24, 25. You have Ben Hutton, who has been a veteran that they have counted on to step up when players have gotten injured. And then you also have situations where the Vegas Golden Knights have some young defensemen in the minors who might make a few game appearances in 24, 25 if injuries do happen. Of course, we're talking about Lucas Cormier, who was a top prospect with the Golden Knights organization. So who's going to be your final defensive pairing for the Vegas Golden Knights? And what this is going to go to is I'm going with the two most established guys. For your third defensive pairing for the Vegas Golden Knights, I am picking two guys who have played a lot of games, two guys who are going to be able to have stability to begin the year. And I'm talking about number 3, Brayden McNabb. I'm talking about Nabber. And then I'm talking about Ben Hutton. And obviously, for anybody who are Vegas Golden Knights fans, you're going to notice the obvious omission from the third defensive pairing. I will explain that in just a minute. But Hutton and McNabb will be your third defensive pairing for the Vegas Golden Knights. Brayden McNabb on the final year of his deal, but he is one of the best shot blockers in the NHL. He has been a very long-term guy the Vegas Golden Knights have counted on, and you need that veteran presence in the locker room. You have a guy like Pietrangelo, you have McNabb. Those are vital for the NHL. Now, Ben Hutton, he was actually someone that when injuries happened last year, when Martinez got hurt, when Pietrangelo had to step aside, he was someone who actually showed up and performed reasonably well when his number got called. And Ben Hutton throughout training camp, Ben Hutton throughout preseason, he has been noticeable in how he has performed. So I'm going to reward that. And I have Brayden McNabb and Ben Hutton as the third defensive pairing for your Vegas Golden Knights. So going over the defensive pairings very quickly before we move over to the goaltending. Defensive pairing 1, Pietrangelo, Theodore. Defensive pairing 2, Haig and Hanifin. And then your third and final defensive pairing will be Brayden McNabb and Ben Hutton. And moving over to the goaltender side for your Vegas Golden Knights organization. And I'm going to be honest with you, you should not be surprised by this. Adin Hill, he is finally going to be the main goaltender. There's not going to be a 1A, 1B situation like you had with Logan Thompson this past season. Adin Hill is going to have to be the man. He's going to have to be your starting goaltender for the Vegas Golden Knights. Now, I understand that there's injury concern. All right, with the amount of times he got injured last year, he did miss a certain amount of games. But when Adin Hill is on it, man, oh man, is he on it. Well, everybody's going to remember his Stanley Cup final appearance against Florida. Everyone's going to remember how he was arguably one of the best performing Golden Knights when they had their Stanley Cup run back in 2023. And the first half of 2023, 2024, Adin Hill was arguably a top 5 goalie in the NHL. That's how good he can be. So if Adin Hill can stay healthy, he is going to perform like a top 10 goalie. Ilya Samsonov comes over from the Toronto Maple Leafs. He was their goalie when they went to the playoffs and lost to the Boston Bruins in the first round this past season. Now, bringing over Samsonov to replace Logan Thompson, if he can be like he has shown in Washington at times, if he can perform like he has done in Toronto in the first half of the season, like he has done in the past couple of years, then you might have a top 10 goalie tandem in the NHL. Hill and Samsonov can perform like a caliber goaltender, like we know they can be, then your Vegas Golden Knights are going to be good at the goaltender position. So overall, when you have Adin Hill and you have Ilya Samsonov, this is going to be your battering ram. This is going to be your 1-2 punch in goalie, in net for your Vegas Golden Knights. And I'm really looking forward to seeing how Hill performs for the first time as the main starting goaltender for the Vegas Golden Knights. And we have about 5 minutes left. Getting into the scratches for your Vegas Golden Knights. Now, the first one that I'm leaving as a healthy scratch, I'm bringing like I said, a disclaimer here. Brett Howden may not be a healthy scratch on opening night. Depending on what happens with William Karlsson, I could reasonably see a scenario where Brett Howden is in the starting lineup and he is suiting up for the Vegas Golden Knights, and William Karlsson is instead where Howden is as a healthy scratch. But listen, because of the 4 lines the Vegas Golden Knights have, somebody has to be the odd man out. And unfortunately, Brett Howden is going to be that odd man out. It has nothing to do with his talent. It has nothing to do with any of that. It's just a situation where Pearson and Lesniewski, they outperformed in preseason. They did exceptionally well in the preseason and in training camp. Then you have Kolesar, who's going to be your 4th line right wing. He has been that way for the last couple of years. And then because you've brought in Holtz, because you've brought in Olofsson, there's not enough roster spots for a guy like Brett Howden. So Brett Howden being a healthy scratch has nothing to do with how I'm complaining about his play or how he's performing. But Brett Howden being a healthy scratch comes down to they have too many bodies and somebody has to be a healthy scratch. Same with Jonas Roundbeer. Jonas Roundbeer is kind of what I like to call no man's land, where he is good enough to be on an NHL roster, but he is not good enough to be in the starting lineup as an everyday NHLer. At this point, Jonas Roundbeer, I highly doubt that he will be back in the AHL full-time. Him being 25 years old, drafted in 2017. He has been with the Vegas Golden Knights for 8 seasons now. It doesn't feel like it, but it has been 8 seasons for Jonas Roundbeer. So him being a healthy scratch does make a lot of sense, understanding the amount of years he's been in Vegas, considering that he's really not AHL caliber anymore, but he is good enough to be on an NHL roster. Jonas Roundbeer will be a healthy scratch. And then the noticeable player here, where so many people are noticing this, yes, I have Zach Whitecloud as a healthy scratch. I am picking Brett Howden, and I'm picking Jonas Roundbeer and Zach Whitecloud as your healthy scratches. But more importantly, Ben Hutton over Zach Whitecloud. Now, this isn't just because of how underwhelming he was in this past season. It's not just because of in the preseason and training camp, he did not look great in the beginning of this year. But the reality is, in terms of job security, Zach Whitecloud has the least amount of job security out of the 8 defensemen that are battling for 6 roster spots. Because you have McNabb, he's a misfit, he does his job, he's going to be secure. You have Haig, who has done a really solid job. Unless something mightily happens to him, his job's secure right now. Noah Hannafin, his job's secure. Shea Theodore, his job's secure. Pietrangelo, with the amount of money they're paying him, his job's secure. So in reality, you're either picking Hutton, Korczak, or Whitecloud to be your final defenseman. And based off of performance and based off of what we saw in training camp, Ben Hutton over Zach Whitecloud. Now, this was your 2024 Vegas Golden Knights roster preview here on Vegas Hockey Hub. If you have any questions, leave it in the comments down below. If you want to like this video, that'd be great. And if you would subscribe to the YouTube channel, that would be amazing. It'd help us out a lot. So until next time, we upload Monday to Friday here on PR Connections Radio. This is Vegas Hockey Hub, and I'm your host, Ian Rakelli. And go Knights, go!
PR Connections Radio thanks you for watching this podcast. Check out more episodes of this show and our others at prconnectionsradio.com.